You ever had one of those moments where you're standing at your father's graveside, still tasting the dirt and grief in your mouth, and just when you think life can't possibly throw anything else at you, bam, you find out your $85,000 handmade boat's been stolen by your HOA president so her brat can pose for graduation selfies. Yeah, that happened to me. Picture it, you're barely done burying your old man, and the next thing you know, the Coast Guard is calling you because some entitled witch is out on the lake in your boat staring an officer dead in the eye and saying, "No, sir, this vessel is mine." Right up until he asks for the registration and she freezes, mouth open, busted cold. Let me back up a sec. Name's Tank Morrison, 52 Coast Guard vet, the kind of guy who'll fix your dock for a six-pack, spend an hour showing you how to winterize your motor, never ask for a thing. My wife Sarah lost her battle with cancer 3 years ago, and if I'm honest, there were days after when I'd stand in our old cabin just waiting to hear her laugh or smell her lavender shampoo drifting down the hall. That's when I started building the boat 28 feet of mahogany and sweat every inch a piece of therapy I needed to keep going. 5 years, I poured into that thing, picking every plank, every bolt, running the wiring twice just because it had to be perfect. I'd sit on the dock some nights, tracing the hull with my fingers like I was trying to pray her back. And you know what neighbors noticed? Pine Lake Estates isn't some ritzy gated place, 147 homes, bunch of retirees, working stiffs, a few folks hanging on to the dream. We pay nearly $500 a month in HOA fees for peace and quiet ducks in the morning, the sound of gravel under tires. Wasn't much drama. At least not until Vivian Blackthorne blew into town with her surgeon husband and her $2 million mansion. Within 2 years, she'd gone from new neighbor to HOA president, then self-appointed queen. She had a nose for weakness, that one targeting widows, old vets, anybody who looked like they'd rather fix a mailbox than start a fight. She kept her distance from me, at least until my father died out in Montana. I flew home for the funeral. 6 days of lawyers and long silences left my boat locked and tied up proper, like the rules said. When I finally drove back Tuesday, something just felt off. My dock cleats, bent ropes, all wrong red Solo cups, bobbing in the shallows like they'd washed up after a bad party. My stomach just dropped. The boat, Sarah's dream, gone. Across the lake, laughter and music, the low rumble of my engine like she was mocking me with my own hard work. Mrs. Patterson was waiting at the fence line. God bless her, twisting her wedding ring and apologizing. "Tank, honey." I tried to call, but Vivian said it was community business. Said the kids needed your boat for the party. I kept my cool. 20 years of Coast Guard training holding me back from shouting. She took my boat without permission. "Said you weren't using it," she mumbled. Through the binoculars, I spotted it tied up at the Blackthorns dock, kids climbing all over Brittany in her cap and gown like it was hers. So I marched over, boots echoing on the asphalt. Her backyard looked like a movie set. String lights, expensive perfume laughter that sounded just a little too forced. There's Vivian in white silk, wine in hand, running the show. She doesn't miss a beat. "Mr. Morrison, so sorry about your father. Hope you don't mind, but we borrowed your little boat." My hands clenched. "That's my boat, Mrs. Blackthorne. I need it back." She didn't even blink, just reached for her purse like I was a valet. "How about $200 for your trouble?" Like that boat was some rent-a-car. I told her it's not for rent. That's private property. That's when her mask slipped. "We live in a community, Mr. Morrison. You should reread the bylaws. I'd hate for there to be misunderstandings about your dock." 3 days later, I get a violation notice, $150 fine for dock damage. Photos included. The same cleats she broke the mess her people made. And that's when I remembered Sarah dragging me to that homeowner rights seminar years back, Rebecca Santos, sharp attorney, teaching folks what HOAs could and couldn't do. If they damage your property, it's not your violation. If they overreach, it's actionable retaliation. So I started digging. First call was Murphy's Marina. Rick said, "Yeah, that fancy lady's been filling up here for weeks, always in that boat, cash only." My Coast Guard buddy Jake, working Marine Patrol, pulls fuel records from half a dozen marinas. Turns out Vivian's been running my boat like it's hers, maybe even for months, hundreds in fuel all over the county. And that's felony theft interstate commerce. Jake sits me down at Danny's Diner Tank. She's running an unlicensed charter operation. "You want to take her down?" You bet I did. But Vivian didn't just fight back, she tried to nuke me. Emergency HOA meeting letters to every mailbox about my PTSD episodes, how I'm dangerous, unstable, maybe a threat. Classic move, paint the vet as the villain. But you know what? All she did was show the neighborhood who she really was. People started watching, started remembering, and they wanted to see if I'd fold, not a chance. The next meeting felt like a town hanging. Vivian in her power suit introducing emergency watercraft protocols, new rules, retroactive fines, inspection fees, everything she needed to keep me off the water. Her buddy, the surveyor, found 17 safety violations on my boat, none real. Sarah's dream was banned from the lake. But Jake pulled the real records. Vivian had filed an insurance claim 3 weeks before, said my boat hit hers while she was anchored, and she wanted $47,000 in damages. Trouble for her on the date of the supposed accident. I was in Montana at my dad's funeral. Receipts, flight records, funeral home documents, airtight alibi. That's when the dominoes started to fall. My neighbor Martha Caldwell showed up with a box full of evidence, years of harassment violations, threats. She targets people who can't fight back tank. But you can. And right there with those envelopes and recordings, I realized Vivian wasn't just a bully. She was a criminal running a racket with the HOA as her personal ATM. Turns out she'd been embezzling hundreds of thousands, faking maintenance contracts, laundering money through her bogus charter business, and squeezing residents for every dime. When federal agents showed up at my dock following a fake environmental complaint about fuel leaks, I pointed across the lake. My boat's been over there since she stole it. Within hours, investigators found deliberate sabotage fuel lines tampered with evidence of criminal framing. Then Jake and the county prosecutor Santos pulled me aside. "We're coordinating a federal RICO investigation. You want to help us catch her red-handed?" Damn right I did. So we set a trap for Labor Day. Micro cameras in the boat community, volunteers, ready federal agents watching every move. Vivian, thinking she's untouchable, organizes a luxury charter event for her law firm buddies, media, local officials, all gathered to watch her flex. What she didn't know, we'd documented every fraud, every bribe, every bit of evidence, even her attempt to wire $180,000 to the Caymans. When she tried to frame me through the VA for aggression, Dr. Williams, my psych eval, filed a report that not only cleared me, but flagged Vivian's harassment as a federal crime. The day of the sting, Pine Lake Estates was buzzing. The Coast Guard boat rolled up, lights flashing. Jake, in full uniform, called over the water, "Ma'am, Coast Guard inspection. Please provide registration and permits." Vivian went pale. Her forged ownership papers fell flat. Everything matched my name. Then I stepped onto the dock right in front of the cameras. "That's my boat," I said loud enough for the world. Santos flashed her badge. Vivian was arrested on the spot: fraud, racketeering, embezzlement, environmental crimes, and more. News cameras rolling, party guests scrambling, HOA cronies pretending they'd never heard of her. 6 months later, Pine Lake is a new place. Vivian's in federal prison, stripped of her law-licensed mansion, auctioned off to repay what she stole. Martha runs the new board, monthly fees drop, the community center painted and lively again. I run the Sarah Morrison Veterans Marine Fund, now teaching younger vets how to fix up old boats, sharing a little laughter, building something honest out of all that pain. Turns out the best way to heal is to serve. We got our dignity back, not just from her, but from the idea that bullies always win. So let me ask you, what would you have done if your HOA president stole your boat and tried to ruin your life? Ever had to fight back against a bully who thought the rules didn't apply to them? Drop your story below. Tell us where you're watching from. And let's remind these Karens that when neighbors stand together, justice hits harder than any fine or threat. Subscribe for more. Next time I'll tell you how a single mom turned the tables on her slumlord and got the last laugh. Because sometimes the best revenge is refusing to stay silent.